Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one person or one starfish at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share. This is something you're going to want to share with the women in your life. I know this already, so make sure to share it. I'm excited for our guest today. Beatriz and I just met. She's out in Spain, so it sounds beautiful. And she helps women basically activate their voice online so they can do better in sales, and also just give them permission to be able to be their full selves, which is awesome. Has been in sales for over 15 years before that. And so we're going to get into her story on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Awesome. So let's go back to I always like to go back to way back, starting out. What do you think in your upbringing? I can tell you already, just meeting you as soon as you popped on, you're a very strong woman. And that's cool. What do you think helped with that as a child, or was something you had to battle through?
A little bit of both. I battled through, but I'm very lucky because my mom, she's very opinionated.
Okay.
And in my house, she's been the one that has the more successful career. He was earning more than my dad. She was a really role model for us. And I think that shaped a lot how I am today.
100%. Okay, that's cool. And that would have been especially going back to her generation, very different, I would imagine, than even now as we get more evolved or whatever you want to call it. It's less but back then I would imagine that would have been even more different for the woman to make more than the man and that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. But I'm also lucky because my dad is the sweetest person in the world. And he knew what he needed to do, and when he needed to step up at some point, at some point in time, my mom was unemployed because she was pregnant with my brother. And when she tried to get back to work, she couldn't find any jobs. So she started a master with people way younger than her. And my dad had to step up at that moment. And he actually started taking care of things at home and cooking. And up until today, he's the one that cooks at home. So
that's so
we
cool.
were very lucky in that sense. But I'm sure my mom, she has gone through a lot in her life and in her jobs with being opinionated or outspoken. And it hasn't always been easy for her either.
Yes, I imagine. And you grew up in a very strong household, and then you turned 18, you went out, and did you go straight into sales, or what did you do coming out of school, out of home?
No, I didn't go straight to sales. Actually, I hated sales. I didn't like them. I didn't want to do anything with them. I actually majored in science, in biology, and I wanted to do research.
Oh, wow.
But at some point in time through university, I started working because I needed to pay for my driver's lessons. And I started working in sales. So fast forward a couple of years, I was actually in Switzerland. I was doing a research project that I needed to do to get into a PhD. And I decided I didn't want to do the PhD anymore. So I started working in many different things at the airport, rental cars, duty free, everything in sales. And that's when I said, okay, how can I combine science and business or sales? And I discovered the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. So I went back home, did an MBA, and that's where I've been working for 11 years, more or less.
That's cool.
So it wasn't a straightforward journey.
And when you switched, I'm curious, I feel like your parents were probably pretty supportive of everything you've done to a degree. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. How about other people in your life? You kind of were going down one path and then you switched to something kind of different. Sales, which for some people is the S word. So did you go through any of that, or do you remember, or were you just doing what you do and, didn't even notice really if people were negative?
it was a big change. And now my parents, I think they are used to me changing. So they are more supportive now. But back at the time, it was a big surprise. And they didn't fully understand what working at the pharmaceutical industry meant. And that master was very expensive. So they were like, I mean, I didn't give them an option. One day I called and I was like, hey, mom, hey, dad, in January, I'm starting this master's. I'm going to be coming home and I've already paid for it. That's it. So they were a little bit like, what are you doing?
Well, you
So
paid
at
for it, I
first,
guess. So
yeah, at first I guess they were kind of like surprised or scared because I have never shown any interest on doing anything like business or marketing or anything related like that, and they didn't know the industry either, so it was a surprise. But then after a while they were like, okay, you like it, if you think it's good, let's go for it.
sounds similar to my parents. I always say they never understood anything I did, but they supported me. They're like, okay, I don't know what you're doing, Aunt, but I imagine you'll do okay, whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
and that's really cool. And so you got into sales, and you were telling me you've had a few times where you got fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it, due to being outspoken, which is what has got you into kind of what you're doing today as far as helping women find their voice. Tell us a little bit about those experiences.
Yeah, like I told you at the beginning before we started recording, I've been fired twice in the last 3 years for being outspoken, and up until that moment, everything for me at work felt very easy. I had a very successful career. I was enjoying my job. I was thriving. I was confident. Everything felt very easy, and I felt like I was being very lucky. So I I got into a manager position in a company that it was very outdated and male dominated, and the position didn't match exactly like what they wanted with my profile. So it didn't work in that sense. When they fire me, they made it everything around my personality and the way that I express myself and how I show up of myself, like with my colleagues and so on. And it really made me doubt myself in ways that I could have never expected, because it changed my confidence when I went into the next job as a salesperson. It changed my confidence as a woman. It changed how I used my voice, how I set limits in my personal life or boundaries. And it's been a journey in which I really lost myself. And now I found myself again. So this second time around, when they fire me, I was not like, I wasn't really liking the position at all, the product, the client. So I was having a hard time, even though I was still doing my numbers. And when they fired me, it was such a relief. And I had an honest conversation with myself and said, okay, if I don't do sales, if we take sales out of the equation, what would I like to do? And that's when it came to me, like, I don't want women to be dismissed like ever again for their opinions or expressing their feelings or showing up as their true self. And I want to change that. And I want to change how women in business use their voice so they can make more sales. And I want to change how they feel when they do it, because I want them to feel like really good and confident and in their feminine energy. So that's how everything started.
And that was the first time, and then you got fired again? Did you?
Yeah, the first time around is when it messed up with me, and the second time is when it showed me the right pathway, I guess you can say that.
Okay. Awesome. And so what have you found to be, I guess, when people hear outspoken, there is a degree of like, you can be too much. And then there's a degree of like, people try to say you're too much. What do you find is that fine line or whatever between like, not just being an a-hole and saying, I'm just speaking my mind and I'm allowed to, and then also like, but being true to you, I guess that's the word.
Yeah. Well, like you say, there is a fine line because often people confuse being truthful with being mean or being not appropriate. And I think there is a difference between saying like, "Hey, I don't understand things," or "I think this doesn't make sense," or "I don't agree with this because whatever reason, and I'm not gonna do it." That's a difference, and you can express your opinions without offending anyone or making anyone get upset, or just like you said, like being an asshole. And sometimes people, they lead with their truth, but in a way that hurts everyone around and is not appropriate. And that's not the point. That wasn't my problem. The problem
Right.
is that I was challenging how things were done, and I was asking questions that didn't make sense to myself, and they didn't like it because they were working in a different way.
So what do you find, because you know this is what you're doing, you're helping activate women's voices online. Tell us a little bit more about what that actually is, and what do you see as one of the number one things that women aren't doing that would empower them more?
I feel like the main reason why women, they are scared of using their voice is because they are disconnected from themselves. Like they are pleasing everyone else, they are nurturing everyone else, they are helping everyone else, and they are very disconnected with themselves. And they are probably like doing way too many things and in overdrive. And their nervous system is like collapsing probably. So I feel like the connection with the body and really being grounded in who you are, being very self-aware in who you are as a person, helps a lot with expressing that truth. And of course, when we have that in place, we can work in articulation, which is the second problem. Like sometimes you know who you are and what you want to say, but you don't know how to articulate it properly, or you are too afraid of the reaction of the other person because maybe they told you when you were little that you were annoying or whatever, right? So there are a few layers that we need to work through. And normally the problem is that we are too afraid to bother, or we are too afraid to offend. And that's why we are not expressing ourselves.
And what do you find when women do actually express themselves? What do you see as, I guess, opening up for them? What are some of the doors that you've, I guess, seen open up for yourself and for others when they can, I guess, be authentic and be themselves?
I think it gives you an energy and courage that is unlimited. And it gives you, like, it changes your energy, the way you present yourself, how you show up, how you deal with conversations, how you deal with hard situations. Everything changes because you are operating at a different frequency. And this is something that back at the time I didn't understand what it meant. But now that I'm going through it myself, I know what it means, because truly you are in another frequency and you are so confident in yourself that nothing shakes you. And if someone doesn't agree with you, it's like, okay, that's your opinion, but this is mine and we are good. And it changes so much that you probably start taking action, doing things that scared you, going after what you want, and so many areas of your life get improved from that ripple effect of you being confident of expressing what you want and what you don't want.
That makes total sense. And you said you do it a lot online too, and helping people find their voice. I think you said something about online. Tell us a little bit more about what that looks like, and like what's, if someone's listening to this, what kind of clients, what's your ideal client looking for, and how can you help them solve their problem?
Normally my clients, they are women that they have a business that they love. They are probably multifaceted, like they are geniuses, and they have clients, they are already making money, but they are still filtering themselves. a little bit online because they are still afraid of showing all the parts of them that they would actually make them magnetic to the dreamest of clients. And we need to bring that at the front of the brand. And there are a few activities that I do with them depending on when they are, but we can do connection with the body through dance. We can do nervous system regulation through EFT tapping. That's something that I do too. And then we do a lot of action. We take a lot of action and we put ourselves out there because at the end, you want to get better at something. You want to get better at being on camera or expressing yourself. You need to start somewhere. And as you go, you will get better. So my clients are action takers.
Action takers. Yeah. Well, that always helps. Yes, that's always a good thing. Yeah. That's awesome. Very, very cool. And, when you started your own business and got out of like anything to do with, I guess, like became a full-time entrepreneur, back to what was the people around you? How did they respond to that? And how did you handle that?
It's so funny because at the beginning, when I started kind of like playing with the idea of doing something online, I didn't tell many people because the culture in Spain is very close-minded. It's very hard to become a business owner of a physical business because taxes are very high and not many people trust businesses online. That's changing, but the market is like years away from what Americans are doing, for example. So I didn't tell too many people because I didn't want to be listening to their fears. And I didn't want to mess with my confidence. But very recently, I had a very honest conversation with my mother, kind of like, hey, I'm not going back to work again because I'm doing this and I'm thriving and it's changing everything for me and I'm going to make it work. Now that I'm full-time on it, I'm going to make it work. And she surprised me very, very much because she was like, of course, if you don't try, you're never going to get your dreams. And I was so surprised because I thought she was going to be scared at first. But like I said before, I think they are so used to me changing and moving that it wasn't a surprise for her anymore. And I think that when I told her what I'm doing, it felt very good for her. Like it felt like it aligned with me. And she was like, okay, that's actually so cool what you're trying to do. Yeah, you go for it. And that was a very nice surprise because I didn't expect it.
That's really cool. Now you can tell me that we don't want to dive into this. Don't talk much before, so everything's live with you guys listening. But I'm curious because it's something for me. So I love the podcast. You are single also. What does like you said, maybe you don't have an opinion on this, maybe you do. Where does the role of a very strong woman, how do you feel that's affected the dating relationships or that kind of thing? By the way, I'm single at the moment, so this is why I'm asking. Curious.
Well, I have a partner. I said I'm not married, but I have a partner.
Okay.
Okay. I have to say it's not easy, and I don't want to have this limiting belief because you never know what's going to happen. So if I ever get single again, I don't want to go into dating with this mindset. But when I talk with women and when I see the online space and I read conversations and you see what everyone is saying about the dating apps and everything, I feel like men, they are not yet prepared for the level of women that it's emerging right now. Mm-hmm. And people tell me not to say this because it's very limited, but I truly think that we have done like a quantum leap in many, many ways. Yeah. And there are not as much men yet that have leveled up to that.
Ooh, I like that.
So they need to catch
up. We might have some people not agreeing with us, but I'm with you. Yeah. And I mean, you talked about, and it's cool.
I'm not saying that there are not
No.
amazing men.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Well, like you talked about your dad being
I'm
an
not
amazing
saying that
dad.
there are not amazing men. Yes. Yeah.
That could,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
still
have
my
that.
dad, he's like, yeah. But like, for example, I don't know if my dad would understand everything that I'm doing, you know?
But I don't know that they need to understand. Like you said, you do have a partner, which is awesome. You know, very strong person, I'm sure. I don't know if they have to understand, but it is interesting that they have to support. I'm guessing your dad probably didn't understand everything your mom did from the way you
Yeah.
described it, but he supported everything she did. And um, yeah, I agree with you. I don't.
Yes.
It might be harder to find, but what would you say? So I know some women like this. So I'm sure you coached some people on this. So that's why I also wanted to dig into this, where some women are scared to be that authentic self and really step into their like true power, if you want to call it that, because of this exact reason. Because maybe they have a partner already and they don't want to scare them away, or they want a partner and they're scared of scaring them away before they even got them. And so they hide their light. This is how I see it a little bit. They hide their light so that they can attract a partner, but really they're not their true self and they're authentic. They're not sharing their authentic voice. How would you help? I'm sure you had people like this when you're coaching them. How do you help coach someone through that mindset?
Well, one of the things, for example, my partner being very honest, at first he was like supporting with the idea of me starting a business. But as he was seeing that it was taking time and it was hard for me, he kind of got scared. Also because he doesn't understand kind of like the investments that you need to do for mentorship and things like that. So at some point in time, he stopped being supporting, and it was hard. Being honest, it was hard, and I didn't defend my ground properly back at the time. But as I was regaining my voice back, I was able to say like, "Hey, I've done many things before you, and I'm gonna still do them after you. So you don't need to support me. It's fine. You don't need to show up interest. I understand that your belief system is different than mine, and it's perfectly fine. But I'm not going to listen to your limiting beliefs or your fears or anything, because I don't have time for that and I don't have the energy. So if you are going to drag me down, I'm not going to get into it. So this conversation is out of limits. And I've had to have this conversation with him a couple of times because he was still worried and he was still trying to convince me to quit. And very recently I told him, like, it's been 2 years and I'm still here. So if by now you haven't realized that I'm really in for this, you are not paying enough attention. So I'm going to repeat it again. Either you support me or don't, but I'm not going to listen to it. And it's not easy thing to do, but I've done it. And now that, especially now that my mom is on board, he's showing interest here and there, and he's being more supportive. But I mean, he's just measuring the business in terms of, like, he's an engineer. So he's like in terms of numbers and money and results. And it's like, you cannot measure everything like that because sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you need to change and you need to rebuild. But yeah, it wasn't an easy conversation to have with him. So if you don't have a partner, I think it's easier because the right person will find you. And if not, you are better off alone, like seriously better off alone than unhappy with someone that doesn't let you be your fullest self. But if you have a partner and he doesn't understand, you're not going to go and break up with him. He has different limiting beliefs and it's fine. So it's better show them by you taking action and being the embodiment of your work than just telling them. So you can tell them, set the limit, and they need to respect that, but you just keep doing your thing and eventually they're gonna see. And it's up to them to catch up to that level or not. And if they don't, well, maybe you might take the decision to break up with them because they are not good enough. Mm-hmm. But often what I've seen is that they actually raise to your level when they see you going like really far on your own.
That's so cool. And that's how, what do they say? Rising tides rises all ships or something like that. So by you being strong and stepping into your power as a woman, if you're listening to this, you can help your guy step up. And if you're the guy with that woman, step up. That's what we talked about there. In wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions. This is so good. 3 final questions, and then anything we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful for our listeners. First and final question is, if someone is looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you could say that could help them find it?
Ooh, that's actually a hard one, but I'm gonna tell them that just because they've done something their whole life doesn't mean that that's their purpose. Because that's something that I had to learn. I've been in sales 15 years, but my purpose is bigger than that. And me being stuck just in sales was actually keeping me small.
And the sales that you've done, that's the thing too, what you've done has helped you where you're at. And just for a lot of people, whatever they've done will help them go to where their purpose is. Second question, what's a favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is that you can only connect the dots when you look backwards. And that's why you need to expect that they will connect in the future. Because it gives me like a sense of peace in the sense that everything happens for a reason. Everything was meant to happen the way it happened. And I needed to go through that to be where I'm at. And it gives me hope because whatever it's meant for me, it's already in the way. I just need to wait for it.
I like that. Third and final question. What's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
Probably something about like love or passion or something.
Love and passion or something. I like that. That's cool. Okay, you're running someone in a coffee shop. A lady specifically will even add into that. And they listen to this and they're learning to step into their power and everything that we chatted about. What's something we didn't talk about that you think would be really impactful to leave our listeners with?
One of the things that I like to talk about is like women, they need to be more open about feeling like sexy and good with themselves. Because I think it's a huge part of the feminine energy, like being sexy and being confident. And it's different for men because when they are confident, they feel powerful. But for us, there is a through line there of being sexy and comfortable in our skin and how we move and how we present ourselves and how confident we are. And normally society doesn't let us show that side of us because everything is very sexualized. And part of our energy is very magnetic because it has like some sensuality to it. So I want women to also be released of that cage of not being able to enjoy themselves in that way and show up as their most magnetic self. So that's something that we need to disrupt a little bit and change.
That's so good. Guys, all the information, if I'm Beatriz, will be in the show notes. So definitely reach out to her, especially if you're a woman, you're looking to find your voice. Definitely reach out. She'll be able to help you with some of that. Let's go out there. Let's share this. If we can help one person or one starfish at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on.
Bye.